struggling myself. So I was gonna stitch the two pieces together, but using two lengths of yarn. Last night I spent all night undoing the top I'd made so far. Hello there all my yarn lovers. So in today's video I thought I'd take you along for the process of making a top. I have no idea how long a time span this video is going to be over, probably a fair bit, because I've already been working on this top for a few months and I'm in a bit of a situation right now. So I'm starting this after having been working on this for a few months, but I'll tell you why, because I only just kind of thought of doing this. And first show you what I have currently. This is the current state of the top. So I've made this much, which is, like I said, a few months worth of work, but that's because I work on it on and off. Like in the evening, a couple of times a week, I'll work on it in the evening a few hours at a time. So about 1 to 2 rows I do per kind of session I'm working on it. So you start from the bottom and work your way up, and I really like this stitch. Show you up close, that's what it looks like. And just for reference as well, I'm using the Friends Cotton 6/8 in this lovely purple colour. Color 71 from Hobbii, by the way. I really like it. Enjoying working with it. Definitely like their cotton yarn. So the only issue I have with it is I wish it would come in bigger balls or skeins, like on cones or something like that. So the situation is, this is from a tutorial that I saw. I'll put a picture of the channel and the tutorial somewhere on screen, and I'll also link it in the description box down below. But I saw it and I really liked it, so I'm just making it to my own measurements, or so I thought. So the current situation is that I'm not following the tutorial to a T in the sense of the exact same that she made, because obviously I'm going to make it longer because I prefer my tops to be longer, and also obviously a different size, bigger. So whereas hers is quite cropped and fitted, I might be able to get her top on my leg or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I'm kind of doing for my own. I also initially thought I would bring up the neckline more because hers is quite out on the shoulders, and I might bring it up a little bit, I've come to decide, but probably not as much as I originally thought, because I've been thinking about kind of keep the neckline a bit more open, get more comfortable with that. So those were the initial thoughts and changes I had. So what I did to start out with is you start with a chain that you then crochet back into, and then you keep working around like that and then working upwards from the bottom. And it's made to measure, so I just thought I would measure obviously the area around my boobs and then my waist, kind of thinking like what's the biggest size so it'll fit over the whole thing, because like it's basically just straight up and down. So I did that, and I don't remember which one I used, but anyway, I did like the biggest measurement. And like I said, I've been working on this for a few months now, and I've gotten quite good ways on it. I've kind of almost gotten to a point where, this is a recent thought, I started thinking, probably because I got to this point where it probably isn't far away from being under the boobs. And that got me thinking, actually what I normally prefer on me is a fit where there's like a cinching under the boobs, and then obviously it goes further up, but basically a cinching on the narrowest point, which for me is under the boobs. I always felt like that kind of gives me the best shape, best look. So I started thinking, literally just recently, that is something I maybe could add to this. It would be quite easy, I would think, to basically make a ribbing that would go all the way around, but obviously tighter under the boobs, so it would cinch in there, and have that connect to this, and then it would cinch in under there, and then you would just start coming back out, crocheting this again over to then come further up, like what her tutorial shows. So I thought a little bit about that, and I still had the chance to incorporate that, and I thought I'm gonna do that. Then the other night when I was working on this, I thought of something, because I also want, like I said, my tops to be a bit longer. I prefer that on me, and my hip / lower belly area is my widest part, but the measurement I took was from the boobs and waist area, not my hips. So I've been working on this for a few months. Pretty much the wrong measurement, I realized, because if I want this to be able to go over my hips, it should probably be bigger than my boobs and waist. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to frog this whole thing. A few months worth of work and like 15 balls of yarn or something. Thankfully I haven't finished off any ends, which I would normally prefer to do along the way, so you're not left right to the end with all of them. But now I'm grateful that I didn't, because I don't want to have to deal with knots as well. So yes, I've come to realize that. So I'm thinking I have to frog this whole thing and restart. And then restart with a measurement that fits my hips instead. Hips, lower belly area. Now with that thought, I then thought, okay, well if that's the case, I might as well then make another change to make it even more bright for me and be happier with it. So if I'm doing that anyway, completely frogging the whole thing, I'm thinking I would then rather keep with the idea of cinching in under the boobs. But then instead of just using the measurement for my hips and lower belly, so the widest part there, make it actually even bigger than that, so it gets more of a flare and kind of dress skirt like movement to it, if that makes sense. So it flares out more, and maybe then work a bit, some decreases into it that's coming up to the waist / under boob area. So I'm thinking I'll be doing that. So I'm going to start even wider, I'm thinking, to get that effect, because I kind of prefer that silhouette on me. So yeah, that is the kind of situation we're in. So after a few months work, I basically got to frog this whole thing and figure out how to just re-roll all the balls of yarn and start again. So I guess that's the first update in this video. I guess I could just maybe try it on and have a little look. So as you can probably see, my hips and lower belly area is the biggest part, and under the boobs it can kind of cinch in quite a bit, so that is my narrowest part. So I still have a ball of yarn attached to this, so I'm going to try and just do this, let's see, try this over the head. I'm pretty sure it's not going to fit over the hips, especially because you start out with a chain, and I think I also should have made that chain a little looser. There's a lot of ends getting caught here. Right, so now the length is kind of not bad. Actually, maybe it's not as tight as I thought, but it's still too tight. So yeah, it kind of is. Actually, the length is way more than I thought it was. Especially if you say, obviously, originally I wasn't thinking that cinching under the boobs, so it would be more like up here right now. But with purposely wanting it longer, it's definitely too, it goes over, but it's too tight for what I prefer. But I actually thought it wouldn't even go over. But then I was cinching in up here under the boobs, so yeah, I would, because then I was thinking then do that flaring thing more as well, make it looser around the bottom, and instead of just having like a fit, obviously not this is tight, but just use a measurement, but actually make it bigger purposely to make it a bit more flowing, but then cinching in up here, and then otherwise continue in more or less the same way as the tutorial. So that was basically my thought and the point I got to. This is weird, it's not actually a top yet, but I'm almost feeling like I need to grab some sleeves. Right, so it's actually the first time I tried it on or anything. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna undo this whole thing, ball by ball, try and keep it somewhat organized and neat so I can just get back to using them. And then I'll take you along for the rest of the journey, I guess, like updates here and there. I have no idea how long it's gonna take, probably a while, since this alone took me a few months of work. And obviously I'm gonna then make the bottom wider to get that flowy, flared look, which is obviously gonna mean more stitches, so more to crochet, which will then add time. Anyway, so I guess that's the plan. So update, last night I spent all night undoing the top that I'd made so far, and I also found a bag that I had, because I was a bit, when I ended up with all the balls of the yarn, like what do I do with these now? They're a little bit unruly, and how am I going to store them to use again? So I think this is a bag my mum sent me in one of her care packages, and what does it actually say? Bag of happiness. So yeah, crochet stuff, yarn, and I kind of thought of this and I thought it's perfect. So I have all the yarn in here, and currently also the hook. Now obviously I used the hook for other things, but for right now, so I ended up with obviously all the balls that I started with. Now I do have to say one of them is split into two because there was a factory knot in it, and I don't really trust factory knots to just leave them as they are basically, so I undid it and basically treating that like ends. So I've ended up with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, I think 2 balls had factory knots. So I have like 12 or 13 balls that I've used so far. So they're all back to actual balls now, and I basically just have to restart.
Later.
So, update on the progress on the top. I've been working on it for the past few weeks. I don't remember exactly when I last did the update, but it's definitely a few weeks ago, something like that. So, I have made some nice progress. Let me just get it out of my project bag, which I'm loving, by the way. Using that, I definitely will be using more of those. Right, so where are we at? So it's gotten fairly long, and I feel like I've reached the length now where this sits nicely under my boobs, and obviously then I'm going to make the waistband as well, so that's going to add a bit of length. And also I am planning on adding like a trim or edging to the bottom edge there. I haven't fully decided what yet, but I do think I will be doing that. I'll figure it out as I get closer to it. It probably will be one of the last or the last thing I'm going to do anyway. So I guess I could just try it on and show you the length. Right, so I'm just going to step into it and pull it up over the hips, which is my biggest area. So it does fit now that I've done measurements correctly. It's a little tight around here, but we'll see how it is when I kind of finish it. But also I'm thinking I will probably end up blocking it or something like that, and then I'm sure it'll work out. Now what I'm thinking is it's going to sit somewhere around here, and then I have a waistband that I'm going to make as well. This obviously is going to add a bit of length, which will be the next thing that I'm going to be working on. And I think I quite like this length to just come down around here, and then obviously add a bit of length as well on the lower edge with that trim or edging detail, whatever I end up doing. So that is the situation we're in. And obviously as I'm doing the waistband, this part is going to get kind of singed in. I've gone over my head how to do the waistband. I think I've come to the conclusion what I'm going to do, but the ideal thing I like to do is say I still have my yarn attached. I will continue using that and then make the waistband straight away, like connected, using the same yarn. But I've been thinking about the alternative option of making it separately and then basically sewing things together after, so attaching everything together after. And I think that's the better option because, one, figure out exactly how to attach it all, and obviously because this upper part is narrower and I want it to singe in up here. But I'm also thinking in case like size changes, you know, gain weight, lose weight, I would like to be able to use this top for as long as possible. And I'm thinking if I make the waistband separate and attach the pieces together after, that if I need to change anything in the size at any point, it will most likely just be the waistband I'll need to change, and it'll be easier to undo the parts from each other and possibly just have to redo the waistband itself and then reattach things rather than redo the whole thing from scratch. So that's kind of my thought process as well, why I'm leaning towards doing it separately and then attaching pieces together. So obviously the bottom part and the waistband, and then above the waistband I'm gonna the same stitch as I'm using down here use to up top, and then obviously the sleeves as well. So that's the point that I've gotten to. I think I'm quite happy with this length now, so it's taken a little while, but actually been quicker the second time around than the first time I did it. I really like this stitch as well, it's very nice. So yeah, like I said, I really do like this stitch, and I've already got plans of other things I want to use it for. It's just a really nice look, I think. It's got quite a lot of coverage, but at the same time you do have this kind of pattern in it. It's not too open, but it's still just there, so I do really like this. It's actually the bag I have in mind with this stitch specifically. But anyway, that's a future project. So also, what I've also been doing, and I will be doing for the rest of the top, is I've been keeping my package label thingies from the skeins of balls of yarn that I'm using, just to kind of keep track of how many I'm using, also for my own personal future reference, and obviously maybe it could help you, and because I'm curious about it, because they are small balls of yarn, they're 50 grams each, so obviously they don't go as far as bigger balls. So I was just curious how many in total I'm going to use so far. Actually, if we include the one that's off the ball that I'm currently using, which there isn't a lot left of, let's include that one. I've used 13 so far, so that's quite a decent amount, and obviously there's still a fair bit left of the top to go. But like I said, the next part will be the waistband, which I'm just going to do a ribbing. Now I have been playing around with the ribbing a little bit. Let's see if I can just find it. I think that's still in there, because I wasn't fully decided on how I wanted to do the ribbing, so I just started a separate ball, and I was just debating really about a single crochet ribbing or a slip stitch ribbing. And this is what the little single crochet swatch looks like. Has a decent stretch to it, and then I made a longer one of slip stitch ribbing. So on the first part here, you can see first of all, so it's quite twisty, which I don't think will be a problem in itself, because once you attach everything together and probably also block it, that'll kind of work itself out. The thing I have about ribbing is I do like it, and obviously it's what I want to use, and it's got the stretch and kind of goes back to its original shape. But I do sometimes feel like it can look a little bit messy, and looking at it now, it doesn't really look that messy. This first part I did. So this is the slip stitch ribbing, which is what I like the look of best, so I think that's what I'm going to stick with. And also wanted to try just playing around with it a little bit and see if I could get it to look a little bit neater, because sometimes, like I said, I think ribbon can look a little messy. It's mostly if you have like the loops and stitches too loose, I find. Of course you want them to be somewhat loose so you can actually get into them, because they are slip stitches, so it can be a bit tricky already, and if you make them too tight it can get it a little bit more difficult to get into. But I just wanted to try and play around with it because I haven't really made ribbing before, so but I'm definitely going to be sticking with the slip stitch ribbing. And then what I'm just going to do is make this separately. First of all, I am going to make it a bit wider, because I thought 5 stitches as the width of the ribbing would be enough, but I find it's a little bit smaller than I actually was imagining, so I think I'm going to be doing 10, basically double this. You could kind of lay them on top of each other just to have that waistband a little bit wider. So yeah, do the waistband wider than this, and then I'm not sure if I'm gonna then start the upper part separately and work that, and then after I've done them all, then put all the pieces together at the end, or if I might attach this to the bottom piece and then work from this to create the upper part. I'm not sure of that one yet, but I'll figure that out as I get there. First step is making this, so obviously I need to make this the length that I want to go around my waist, basically. I guess that's the update, because that's the step I've gotten to now. I'm pretty set on the ribbing here, so it's just cracking on with it. Obviously with it being slip stitches, it's going to take just a little bit of time, but I don't think it's going to be too bad, because this length alone didn't really take that much time, so it was alright. But yeah, I do like the single crochet ribbing, just not really what I had in mind for this. I think my favourite though is the slip stitch. It just looks a little neater and less messy in a way. So yeah, that's the plan, and I'm going to do that off a fresh ball, so I'm not kind of cutting something off yet and regretting, because what I did as well is on this main piece so far, at the very top, which is the other side of course, I have already then actually gone all the way around at the top and finished it off with a single crochet round all the way around, and I actually really like how that turned out. So obviously I wanted to have as neat an edge as possible, because I figured it would be easier to attach the ribbing to the single crochet round rather than faffing about with the top of this stitch, because especially where you have the pattern there with the holes in the stitch, it's a little bit gappier and could be a bit tricky to maybe figure out and make it look nice. So I thought it'd be better to finish off with a single crochet row all the way around and then attach that and the ribbing together. So that's the plan. So I've just got to get on with making the ribbing. So this is mostly going to be a ribbing update, because I finished the bottom part, but I've gone ahead and I think finished the ribbing. So this is the whole length, I'm hoping, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So let's just kind of try it around here first. Now the point of the ribbing is not that I want it to be stretched out per se while wearing it. It's more that it's kind of tightening in around the waist as wearing it, of course, but that it can open up while taking it on and off. That's kind of the point of it being ribbing, otherwise it could have been anything really. So I just wanted it to be kind of snug when it's just sitting there, and I think that's pretty good. I'm not really stretching it, but the ends kind of just meet up. I think I just need to try and attach them together and then properly take it on and off, because I want to make sure I can actually get it on and off, of course. Because otherwise, what's the point? After that, I did start what's going to be the top part as well. So for this, I just started literally the same way that I started the bottom part that I've already made, but I just made it smaller. So I basically took the measurement around my bust, so the biggest part, and just worked off of that, because the bottom is going to then of course be attached to the ribbing, and then I'm just going to work up to the point where I'm then going to attach or start adding in the sleeves. So it's not going to be a whole lot, because it's going to be from around here till probably about midway on the breasts, where I then want to actually add in the sleeves, which I've got to make separately first before you then add them to this, and then continue up after that according to the tutorial. So I started that part. Like I said, the ribbing, I think I'm just going to connect it and see if I can easily enough put it on and off, and then carry on this upper part until I'm then guessing going to start the sleeves. Really will be the next thing. So I purposely didn't attach things together. I did consider wanting to attach things together as I went. I normally prefer that, but for this, because I kind of feel like to make it a bit more adjustable long term, say losing, gaining weight and things like that, if I feel like it gets a bit too big at some point, for instance, all I feel like I'd have to do is basically take the different pieces apart and kind of just redo the ribbing probably, but I could maybe make smaller, and then reattach the stuff instead of having to remake the whole top. So that is my thought process, and why I'm not kind of attaching them together as I go. I guess we'll see how that goes as well. Now what I also did with the ribbing here is, first of all, I still have this yarn attached, so I've not cut it off yet. That's what's left of the ball I was using. I did attach a new ball a little bit along the way, so it's not just using one ball for the whole thing. I have gone on to two, but not two full ones. But at the beginning, I did also make sure to leave a good chunk of yarn and just roll it up there, just so I have that I'm thinking to use to attach pieces together. So that is my plan to do. So we'll see if it works out that way, but I'd rather have it than not. I can always not use it. But I've also, along the way, when making the ribbing, basically attached a stitch marker on every 10 rows. And I've done that because I just thought it would make it easier for myself, because my thought is the bottom part that I've already made, the amount of stitches I have going all the way around, and then the amount of stitches or rows, whichever, I have on the ribbing here, they're not going to be the same because I've done them off of different measurements. And obviously this is made with slip stitch and the others are regular crochet, but I want to kind of try and attach them together still somewhat mathematically, so nice and even. And I want to try and work that out mathematically. In other words, I'll then need to know how many rows and stitches I have to work with on each part, and then basically work out where I need to maybe say double up attaching some stitches together. And that's why I thought, instead of having to go all the way back from the beginning and count these rows from one end to the other to know how many stitches or rows I have in this, I literally just added a stitch marker to every 10th row. So I can literally just go back and count the stitch markers. So I thought that would make it a little bit easier for myself. I will just have to count the stitches on the bottom part that I made, but that's fine. I think this would be a little bit more tedious to do than that. So that's why there's so many stitch markers in there. But now I need to basically try and just connect these two ends together using slip stitches or single crochet. I'll figure that out. And then just try this on properly and take it on and off to make sure obviously it fits, so I can get the top on and off when it's done, because this will then be the narrowest part, but does stretch because it's ribbing, so there's some give to it. So that is the next part here. So, moment of truth, I've connected the two ends together. I just did slip stitches down, and I'm still holding on to the yarn, so it's going to be a little bit awkward putting this on, but the point is to just find out that I can, and I would say that I can tell there. It was mostly if it'll go over the shoulders and that, so let me just get hold of these differently. Straight around. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So basically the ribbing for the waistband is done. I have the bottom part done. I started the part that's coming up from the waistband there. So when I feel like that length or height is enough, I will then stop that, but leave yarn attached and everything, because I'll then start the sleeves separately, which I also have to figure out how long and how wide and flowy and things like that I want them. So this part I don't think is going to take that long, because I've already done a few rows. Since I have ribbing on, let's just pretend that's still attached as well, so I'm not going to pull too much. So that will start like down there, and it'll come up to probably about the midpoint, so maybe about double the height of what it is now. And this is not as wide as the bottom part, so it doesn't take as long to do with the rounds of the crochet. So probably about double of what I have now, the height, until I then stop and then start working on the sleeves. I feel like I'm making some good progress. I'm getting very excited more and more to see how things will turn out. And also, by the way, this feels pretty comfortable. It's not tight or anything. Like I said, I didn't want this to be kind of tight when sitting where it's supposed to sit, only as you're taking it on and off, because that to me is the whole point of the ribbing. I'm pretty pleased with that. And then just crack on with this other part until I can then start working on the sleeves. So update on the upper part here. I think I've actually reached the height that I need for now. So if we just imagine that the ribbing is going to end down here, and this would then be above it, of course, attached eventually. And then the point is to stop at the point where I would then want to start adding in the sleeves. So if I kind of use the top I'm wearing, I feel like that's pretty much now, and I do feel quite comfortable in this top. So now, of course, this is stretch fabric and this isn't really stretch fabric, but I do quite like the way this feels and sits, because I don't want it to obviously be too loose, but I also don't want the sleeves to be tight or anything to kind of go all the way up in the armpits or something like that. That'll be uncomfortable, probably unwearable. So I feel like this is the point that fits pretty well where I would then want to attach the sleeves. But of course, first I need to have sleeves. So I'm leaving this for now. I'm keeping everything attached because there's no point in creating more ends than necessary. And I have started the sleeves barely, and this is the one I started. I've done basically 1.5 row so far, and I just start them in the same way as all the other parts of that stitch. So actually this is going to start from the hand end of your arm, but I'm just going to make them the same size all the way up and down. I'm not going to do anything decreasing or increasing or anything. So I basically just wanted to make sure that this was going to be able to go around my arm, obviously up on the biggest part, and be a bit comfortable. I don't want it too loose up here, but I also don't want it to be really snug and tight. So I feel like I got a comfortable point where then I'm just going to start or continue crocheting from down here and then work my way up, and eventually when I get to the top part it should fit because this fits. So yeah, basically I just got to make the sleeves now, 2 of them of course. In my head I kind of gaslight myself to thinking the sleeves aren't going to take that long, because like they're obviously quite a bit smaller than say the body or something, but because they're substantially longer and there's 2 of them, it'll probably take longer than I'm thinking it will. So but whatever, I'm enjoying it anyway, so it's not like that's a problem. It's just because obviously I would like to get it finished because I'd like to see the finished result, but it takes the time it takes. So yeah, that's the point I'm at, is basically I've started the first sleeve. I need to basically just keep going until it's the length that I want for a sleeve, and then do the exact same thing again with the other sleeve, so I have 2 of the same, and then finish both of them off to then be able to attach to the piece that I just showed you before, because that's where you then continue working on that, but you work the sleeves into it and then work further up. So that is the point I'm at. So basically for now I'm just going to keep this stitch as long as I need for the sleeves. So who knows how long that'll take. I'll check back in when there's something to check back in about. Right, sleeve update, because I think I've finished one of the sleeves. I worked on it over a few evenings. I've left it open on the end, though I'll get back to that. So let's just try it on first of all, because the aim is obviously to want to get it long enough to what I want. So I am wanting to try and get it as far into the armpit as possible, really, just to obviously match up with how the top part here that I've made is going to end, which I might end up adding a bit, I don't know, we'll see as I go, and maybe when I try and put things together a bit more. So if I pull it all the way in and it then sits there, now I do probably want to add some edging. I'm not fully decided on what I'm doing yet, so I don't know if I'm going to be doing ribbing and basically tightening around the wrist, or whether I'm going to just do an edging and have it loose like this. I haven't decided on that yet, but I'll get back to that. I'm just leaving it there for now. I think I've reached a good length, because I've also been thinking about blocking, because my concern about doing these are, let's say I finish it all, put it all together, I feel like I have the right length I want. If I go to wash it, like of course you want to do with your clothes, technically that's like blocking it, isn't it? So I do worry, say, what if they end up getting too long once I've done that? So I'm actually considering making both the sleeves once I've done both of them, then blocking just them on their own and basically see if they lengthen, and take it from there, because like I said, I've left the end open, which is up here actually, but anyway, I've left it open and it's still attached to the yarn, so I'm not going to finish anything off. Thinking I'm going to try and block both the sleeves once I've done them, and just in case they do lengthen, obviously I can always undo a bit of the work I've done if it end up being too long, or maybe they're good as they are, or I can then add a bit if I actually want it to be a little bit longer. I think that is the best choice. So I really don't want to do that. It's like a hassle to have to do that, but I kind of feel like I should, because if I don't do it and it ends up the sleeves will kind of grow and lengthen once it gets washed and stuff like that, that will really annoy me. All the work I put into it and then like that one thing, and then I'll regret not doing the sleeves on their own before I assemble everything. So I do think I need to bite the bullet and actually just do that. Anyway, so those are my thoughts so far. I do really like this. I feel like I got the right circumference on the sleeve. I was a bit worried about it being too tight, but I actually quite like it, because I do like that it's kind of firm up here and then that it's looser down here. So as of right now, this sleeve is done, except for, you know, all the finishing touches and all that. So I have started the second sleeve, so from the bottom, which is down from the wrist there, and made a few rows, and basically just need to get this. Obviously I've made sure that both are the same, so I counted the amount of like sections in the design and the stitch there, and I ended up making sure that I had the same amount on this one, so they're gonna hopefully be exactly the same. And then I'm going to obviously then make sure that they're going to be the same length as well. I'm just going to count the rows that I've done. Maybe I should have put some stitch markers throughout, like on every 10 rows, just to make it simpler. Whatever. So I'm going to get this to the same point that I have this. So far I am liking it though. It feels pretty comfortable to wear like this. Obviously nothing's attached yet, but when I'm trying to kind of just wear it like this, trying to imagine it's going to be attached to the rest of the top, it does feel pretty nice. And I've also tried it on the bare skin. I do quite like the feeling of this yarn. There's nothing irritating or anything about it. I think I could quite easily wear this as a top and it's not going to be irritating like wool, for instance. I'm not really a lover of wool in any way, at least not for wearables. So anyway, sidetracked. So yeah, that's the point I'm at, working on the second sleeve. Literally just going to keep doing round after round after round. These rows are definitely quicker, but obviously they also have to be quite long, so it does take a little bit. So I'll probably use the next few nights to get this the same length as this.
A few inches later.
Right, so I've decided today I want to see about blocking the sleeves. So I'm just upstairs in my studio to get my supplies. So I have a pack of blocking mats, I think it's called. So I'm just going to see about getting them out, if I remember where they are. Move that. They should be down here in one of these drawers. Nope, nope, nope. That's other stuff. Next one, please. Yeah, I see them. There we go. And now I just need to get them out. So this is a little bit of, I guess you could call junk drawer, except it's not junk. It's just stuff that hasn't really found its place yet. Right, I'm not sure how many I'm going to need, because it is just 2 sleeves, but obviously there's a bit of length to them. I think it should be fine doing one for the width, and then it's just a matter of, I'm thinking probably 3 per sleeve, but I'll just bring them all down. So, oh, these as well. I'm curious about using these. Probably thinking like alongside a different yarn. Anyway, sidetracked. This is silver one as well. Anyway, sidetracked again. So I have the mats, and then I need some pins to be able to pin it in place. I think that should be enough. So mats, pins. So just making sure I've got everything. I don't want to run up and down if I can help it. Oh no, wait. I was going to get a little bucket type thing to do it in rather than the sink itself. Right, so I've got the bucket now. It's pretty full of crap in the sense of dust and stuff, fluff. We're not going to look inside of it, but I'm just going to clean it up before I actually use it, of course. So bringing all this down, cleaning out the bucket, filling it with warm water, not hot from what I've seen. Wetting it all, making sure it gets all wet, and then pinning it in place and let it dry. Right, so we're now downstairs. I have my crochet. And let's get the sleeves out. Right, now they're attached together because I'm using the same ball of yarn from either end. So let's try and do this logically. I still have all the ends attached, which means these little easy start pulls as well. Oh well, it's just water. So I'm going to fill this with warm water. Forgot a towel. Right, got a towel. So let's just move stuff out of the way. Don't need to crochet. And then let's just try and be clever about this. Right, so I don't want to dunk the ball in there. Guess we'll just dunk it. I hope I've got enough water in there. I'm unraveling it. I feel like this is like really complicated just because they're attached together and they're still attached to a ball. I guess that's it. It's all soaked. Can't really think of what else to do. And place it down, flatten it out while we do the other sleeve. Try not to unravel this one. So flatten this out. Right, time to roll. Right now, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get here. Doing one at a time, but get them laying next to each other at the same time. My ring! Freaking heck, I didn't realise I lost it. At the same time, something a bit like that. And I guess pin them in place. Although I don't feel like it's necessary, but probably, especially if I want to move it around, which I do, because I can't leave this out. We will have a little Mr. chewing and eating it. So it has to be put out of access. Ooh, I'm gonna just stab myself. So I guess let's start in a corner. Make sure there's no creases. I obviously also want the sleeves to be the same length as each other. I'm very curious how long this is going to take to dry, especially because it's on something plasticky basically, so it doesn't have air going all the way around it. So I think I'm going to put it on top of there, which means I need to move those boxes, but also open up the top wings, but I think just maybe get a hand to move it anyway. Hello baby. Just give it a second while Princess eats. Want to scare her. So this is what it looks like. Just waiting for Princess to finish eating so we can put it up there. It is now up top, so no baby should be able to get to it. I hope. Let's not get any ideas. Anyway, now we just wait for it to dry in a day, two, I don't know, a while. Right, so it's a couple days later, and I thought I would just kind of check the process of it drying with you. I have been checking it the past few days, but it kind of seemed like it stayed wet for quite a while. Not wet, but just still felt wet. To be fair, it is kind of hard for me to feel because my fingers, I have Raynaud's, so they're cold all the time. And sometimes that's enough for everything to feel wet. But anyway, so I do actually feel like this feels pretty dry now. I would like to think so, considering it's been several days. So I think I could see about taking this off and I guess figure out if anything's happened. Right, so I'm taking the sleeves off, and basically the next step would be to continue this upper body part but adding the sleeves in. Before I do that, I think I'm going to start actually finishing off some ends. So I'm thinking that's probably what I'm going to spend tonight doing. Mostly is finishing off ends on basically all the other pieces that I've already made, so I can kind of start to see things a little bit finished, because spoiler alert, I guess it seemed like nothing changed with the sleeves. Basically they stayed the way they were, so maybe at least then I know. Kind of seems like all that individual sleeve blocking was for nothing, but ew, that's life. Starting to feel a little bit more real.
Later.
Right, so the sleeves are now fully dry, and I've also gone through and finished off the ends, and I've actually finished off the ends on everything, minus where they're actually still attached to like a ball of yarn. I guess I'll show you the sleeves again. I personally don't think there's any difference from before and after blocking, so you could say it was a waste of time, but at the same time, at least you know. And honestly, I'd rather it be that than not doing it and then regretting not doing it. So the sleeves first, because I'm trying to get a before and after. Bear in mind, they're still both attached to a ball of yarn, and it's the same ball, so it's a little bit awkward, but we can deal with it. So again, pulling them all the way up to the armpit basically, and of course they keep wanting to fall down because they're not attached yet, so I'm trying to kind of do the same thing that I did before they were blocked, and I feel like they look the same. I am happy with them. I like the length that they are. Obviously I'm still going to just add a bit of something on the edge, whether that's some ribbing or some kind of trim or edging. So I'll figure that out later on. But I'm just going to leave them as they are and not kind of change anything. So the sleeves are ready in my opinion. And like I said, I finished everything off, so all the ends. Minus of course, like I said, that's what I started I think, where it's still attached to a ball of yarn. But on the inside and the outside, wherever I added new yarn, I finished off all those ends, and that did take a while. And I guess let's just do a little recap. So there's this piece, the biggest piece, and like I said, everything is still attached to some yarn because I didn't want to fully finish everything off until I'm absolutely sure. And I feel like I am absolutely sure now, but I've only finished off the parts where I added in yarn and stuff. This is the part that's obviously going to be in the bottom, so from basically under the boob, and then the length of the top, and there I'm also going to add some ribbing or edging like I said. So that part I feel is ready to go. That is ready to be attached to the ribbing that I made for the waist area here for under the boobs, and I'm going to try and put it all on if I can. Obviously everything is loose, so this is going to be very awkward and probably stupid. Anyway, that doesn't stop us, does it? So this obviously is going to be the narrowest part, but because it's ribbing, it stretches, so it goes over actually really easily. That's nice. So that is meant to sit under the boobs, and then of course this part will go under it, so I will attach this to the bottom part of the ribbing, and then, so it gets difficult, I have the part that's going to end up being attached, it's also a ball of yarn attached to the upper part of the ribbing, and then obviously go over the boobs. And I've stopped at the point where I'm then going to attach in the sleeves, and once they're attached then continue with the upper part here and the sleeves to basically create more height. So that is the plan, and then obviously come up to where I want the neckline to be and add. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to do the ribbing that she did in the video as well, because I think that's really cute and fits it really well. So I basically feel like I'm at a point where I need to attach everything more or less. I'm a bit in two minds whether I should just attach the sleeves to, let me just get rid of this because it's a lot to hold on to, whether I should just attach the sleeves to this upper part and then carry on working, or maybe I should attach the bottom parts together to basically start getting the finished top and get more of an impression, because maybe that'll be better off of figuring out where I want to stop with the neckline and that as well. So I should probably just see about attaching everything together, which is obviously going to take a bit of time as well. Although finishing off all the ends here of everything that I left along the way, that did take a couple of days, I'm not going to lie. Obviously not like non-stop, but working several hours every day for a couple of days, so that took a while, but I'm glad that's done, majority of it anyway. So yeah, I actually feel like I'm getting to a point where I can start to see a top come together. I'm seeing a finished piece in my head, and I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing. Like I said, that bottom part I'm going to attach to the ribbing, and I'm just going to do that, try and do it a bit mathematically, so count all the stitches and work out where I want to say put 2 stitches into one and try and even it all the way around so I don't end up with a chunk. So that's where we're at. I can start to actually attach things together now. That's a really good feeling. And I've happily forgotten about finishing off those ends, because it was a bit tedious, I'm not gonna lie, but it's done now, so it didn't happen, right? Right, so midway progress checkup of attaching pieces together. I have attached the bottom part, so the biggest part, with the ribbing that's going to sit under the boobs, and it took a few days, I'm not going to lie. I'll just get it out and show you, and I haven't tried it on yet. I wanted to wait and do it on camera with you. Along the way I got a little bit worried. For some reason I was starting to feel like attaching the bottom part, which is obviously wider than the ribbing, because that's the whole point, it's going to then cinch in, but I was starting to feel like, is it kind of stretching the ribbing so it's actually going to be bigger than what I'd crocheted it to be. So I got a little bit worried along the way, but we'll see when I put it on if it's bigger than I actually made it. I think it should be fine, because it's just kind of the bottom part of the ribbing that's obviously stretched a little bit, which is natural. When you have a bigger piece, it's going to attach to a smaller piece, but I still feel like most of the ribbing there looks pretty much the same, so I think it should be fine. It's just me being paranoid, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so basically the process is I left a long length on, it was either the ribbing or the bottom part, don't remember which one, but it doesn't matter, and used a long ass length of yarn. I actually doubled it up, thinking, because I kind of felt like one length of yarn, if it breaks in one place, basically that will unravel the whole thing. So I kind of thought maybe I should do 2 lengths, but at the same time. So I was gonna stitch the 2 pieces together, but using 2 lengths of yarn just to make it extra secure. So I made that decision, and yeah, baby, are you helping out? You go, girls, sing. Like I mentioned as well, what I wanted to do was basically count how many rows I had on the ribbing and how many stitches I had on the bottom part, and then work out using maths, because obviously it wasn't going to be the same amount. So I wanted to work out how I needed to ideally double up sometimes into 1 stitch on one but 2 on the other, to kind of get the, because obviously it's going to bunch because you are singeing it, the bigger part of it. But to do that so it gets even throughout, that's kind of the look I wanted to make sure to get. So prior to starting, I worked out some math, which I love. It is not my sit-on suit, but I did think they can't be that difficult. In my head I was like, it's going to be quite simple, but it was a little bit more difficult when I was trying to work it out than I thought it would be. I don't know why, but anyway, me and numbers don't get on. So I obviously counted them all first. So the large bottom part, I then counted the amount of stitches. By the way, I'm really glad that I ended up making a whole row of single crochet around that at the very top. That was so easy to work into when stitching that part together with the ribbing, so I'm glad I did that, and I also think it ended up looking really nice. But anyway, so I made some calculations here, very advanced. So anyway, the top part, so the widest part, I actually thought that would have the most stitches, which I don't really know why, because the ribbing I made with slip stitches, so of course that's going to be a lot more than you actually realize. Anyway, so the large bottom part there, I counted the stitches. I don't really remember that part about working that out, but anyway, that is the amount of stitches I had all the way around. And then the ribbing, I had already attached stitch markers into every 10th row, knowing I was going to count it, and I'm so glad I did that, because all I had to do was count how many stitch markers I had, which is a lot easier to count to 56 rather than 560. So I could just count to 56 and then times it by 10. So that was nice that I did that. Appreciate myself thinking ahead. But then obviously that's when I realized the ribbing actually had quite a few more stitches or rows than the other parts. So basically a bigger gap between them than I thought there was going to be. So it was actually reversed to what I thought it was going to be for some reason, which, like I just said, it makes no sense. I think it makes no sense why I was thinking the other way around. Anyway, all that to say is what I then wanted to do was work out the difference in the amount of stitches. So obviously I take the biggest number minus the smallest number, and I work out how many extra stitches there are, and then this is where I started getting confused or confusing myself, thinking like, what am I doing? And it just gets all jumbled up in my head, whereas I felt like it should be quite simple, but it started not being simple. So I then took that number, the difference between the two amounts, and so the biggest number I had, I then divided by that number to then find basically how many times that would go into that number, which would then give me the count or the number for basically where I should be doubling up the stitch, the connection point you could say, on the biggest part, so the ribbing, well not the biggest, sorry, the one with the most rows or stitches. So basically if you round it up, obviously that's every 4th stitch. I then worked out that I would just connect 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, and then in the 4th one I would then take 1 from the ribbing, 1 from the bottom part, but then on the bottom part the same one I would go into, but then the next one on the ribbing. So every 4th stitch I would do like that. The problem with that was a little bit as well, I think this is very much ADHD related. It seems simple, and I feel like it is and should be, but I'm sitting going through, I do 1, 2, 3, and obviously it takes a bit of time because I'm also working with a long as length of yarn, so each stitch takes a while, and I do one and I'm counting as I do it, but when I count and say a number, by the time I get to the next one I forgot the previous count. So that happened a lot, so I kept having to like double check, try and count, but then it was hard to tell the difference between the last place I put in 2 in the same stitch as opposed to 1 and 1. So let's just say this whole process was a lot more complicated than I feel like it ever should have been. So that was my math. And obviously it wasn't bang on 4, but I kind of figured it doesn't have to be precise. It could be close enough and you can always kind of wing it a bit along the way. Which I did end up having excess stitches on the ribbing towards the end where I was running out of stitches on the bottom part. So towards the end it kind of got a little bit more bunched together, so I ended up putting like 3 or 4 stitches from the ribbing into the same stitch on the bottom, just to basically get the whole thing attached together, because I was like, I'm not undoing this and going all the way back, and I would have to take a new length of yarn as well because that had been too worn from going through again and again. So I was like, I am making this work, which normally I would have preferred to undo it and redo it, but one, I'd spent so much time, like a few days on doing this, and I feel like effort and energy, and I'm just like, it's just the last bit, and it's like, it can't be that bad. It surely shouldn't, it should still be alright, and it's alright. I don't think anyone would ever notice it. And even so, I think I'm going to put it on one of the sides instead of right on the back, kind of that, I guess, connection point you could say. I think I'm going to put it on the side of the body and make it a little bit less obvious as well, even though it's not that obvious anyway. So that's where we've ended up basically. So the ribbing for under the boobs and the bottom part is attached together. I haven't finished off the ends just because I just wanted to try it on first. I don't know where the ends have gone, but anyway, I just wanted to try it on before I fully finished off and made knots and everything. And I also thought, try it on now before I start attaching the top part to the ribbing, or the upper part of the ribbing of course. So yeah, so should we just try it on after all this adventure, I guess. Like I said, I'm doing it with you. I haven't done it myself yet, so we'll see together what it's like. I really hope it fits, because if it doesn't, if it's expanded or something, that's gonna piss me off. I'm gonna have to undo all this work. Anyway, let's see. So I'm not gonna be bothered about what direction it faces, as in that seam or anything. I'm just gonna get it on and see the size. And obviously also, oh, there the ends were. Well, you know. Before I then attach the top part to the ribbing on the top side of the ribbing, I'm going to remove all these stitch markers because I now don't need them anymore. I've done my counting. I can use that same number for when I basically repeat the same process for the top part. This could be a little top. Anyway, but I do know the top part around the boobs that goes above the ribbing is not as big as the bottom part. I did purposely do so the ribbing wasn't going to be tight when it was just on, basically. So it's not meant to be tight because it's meant to expand obviously as you put it on and off, so you can get it on and off. But obviously right now this would kind of fall down as you move, but there's going to be the upper part to hold on to it. So what are we thinking? I think I maybe was worried for nothing. I was also thinking worst case scenario, if it's expanded a little bit, I could use, because this pattern in the crochet, whether it's on the bottom part or the top part, just above or below the ribbing, there's these little gaps because that's part of the pattern. I could maybe make like a drawstring crochet one and use that to kind of tie around the waist area, just where the ribbing is, to if I wanted it a little bit tighter. So that was also an option I thought of, just in case, like worst case scenario. So yeah, I've thought of a few options or solutions as opposed to having to undo a whole bunch of work, because I really don't want to do that. Plus I really want to be finished with this. I'm so excited to see it finished and try it on fully finished, and honestly get on to the next project because I have several ideas in my head. I just want to start them, obviously just one at a time, but I just want to get on with that. But anyway, this is where we're at. I think we're okay. I think I can continue. So I think I'll attach this upper part to the top part of the ribbing next, before I then attach the sleeves to the upper part. I think that's best when you think about how to work with it, because yes, there's going to be more to work with and move around as I then continue after attaching the sleeves, but it would also be a faff to have the top part and the bottom part done and then attach them together sewing like I did with the needle and that, like I did with the bottom part here. I think that would annoy me more than the other part, so I think I'm going to do it like that. So I guess I just need to carry on sewing before I can carry on crocheting. Right, so I've attached both the bottom and the top part to the ribbons of both sides, and I kind of have a little bit of a feeling that I fucked it up. So I almost feel like I've made a little bit of a setback here. We'll have a look together. So I haven't tried it on yet. I wanted to wait to do it with you. So I showed you, I did kind of some calculations to attach the bottom part to the ribbing to try and work out to basically where to put the extra stitches, because obviously there's more stitches on one of them than the other. So anyway, I basically did the same thing to the top part. They were just different numbers, except for the ribbing, that was the same of course, but the top part was smaller than the bottom part, so that had less stitches. So I did the calculations for that one as well, and I kind of feel like the same thing went wrong on both the bottom and the top attachment to the ribbing. So I worked it out to where I wanted to get those points where there was one stitch from one side and then 2 or 3 from the other going into the same stitch, kind of evenly spread out throughout the attachment all the way around. So I worked that out. There could be 2 problems. One, I could have worked it out wrong, which wouldn't be surprising because me and math. I thought, oh, it won't be too difficult, but then I started doing it, I was like, what am I doing? What am I looking at? And then also, as I was doing it, because, what was it? I think for the bottom part, and then to the ribbing there, the bottom side of the ribbing, I worked out that it was every 4th stitch where I needed to attach 2 into 1 basically. So basically, as I was going all the way around, I would like count, okay, 1, 2, 3 bobbies, because I'm working with such long length of yarn, and so each individual stitch takes a long time to then get to the new one. So by the time I've done one stitch and counted that, when I get to the next one or the one after that, I kind of forget the number. So I think there were quite a lot of times where I messed it up, which then obviously affected the pattern of that later on. So basically what's ended up happening, that I ended up towards the end, so this would be the side where I kind of felt like that seems alright and pretty nicely, you know, scrunched up. And then it turns out once I got to closer to the end that it wasn't going to line up properly. So I ended up having 5 more stitches left on the one with more stitches than I'd worked out. So obviously I must have done a load of wrong counting along the way is what I'm thinking, or initial miscalculation in the first place. And so this is what the other side looks like. You can see it's much more bunched up, and in my head I just feel like I've messed it up, but I did decide, because I've spent a lot of time on doing this alone, because it's taken days to attach the bottom part and then days to attach the top part to the ribbing. It took a long time. I'm just like, it might be alright if it's not completely even singeing all the way. So I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna keep going, also because it'll be very difficult to undo, because yeah, it just would. So I thought I'm just going to keep going, so I attached the top part as well, and the same thing happened there. So again, basically the same area is more scrunched up than the other part. Now as I was getting closer to the end of attaching the top part to the ribbing, I did start having real doubts. It's like, am I really messing this up? And should I just undo now, stop wasting more time, undo the whole thing and redo it, restart basically? I was this close to doing that, but then I ended up saying, you know what, no, finish it, because who knows, it might actually be okay. So it may be, I thought in my head it could work out that this part that's more singed, maybe it would then be the back or the front, depending what looks best or how it kind of fits. Maybe I should try and finish it and then try it on and see what it's like. So yeah, that's the stage I'm at. So like half of me is worried that I basically fucked it up, and half of me is like, I think it'll be alright. So I don't really know what direction it's gonna go, but struggling myself. I guess we just gotta try it to figure that out, because obviously I put a lot of work into that pattern. I don't want to waste that, but at the same time I want to be happy with the final result and actually wear it instead of just finishing it and not being happy with it, and then I'm gonna end up not wearing it. So let's put it on. Right, so it's still attached to a ball of yarn somewhere. Oh yeah, I think that's at the top where I'm going to continue crocheting after I've attached the sleeves as well. So I'm just going to put it on, and we can, I guess, rotate it around if I feel like it would look better on the back or the front or something. I think I want to try and put that extra singed up bit on the back, because that was my thought at first, is it would look better on the back, but we'll see. I was also worried as I was doing it that I was actually kind of like enlarging the ribbing, but actually now it feels tighter, because I almost felt like adding all the extra stitching and sewing things together was kind of spreading the ribbing a bit, but actually I feel like it's tighter rather than lighter. I think it needs to come up a bit on the back. So obviously the ribbing sits under the boobs there, because the problem and the issue or concern I had with too much singeing with attaching these pieces to the ribbing was also to, like, I wanted to avoid it getting like a bit of a balloon shape, if that makes any sense. So that was a bit of a concern. So the back, I do feel like the ribbing has gotten a little bit tighter, weirdly. I did not expect that. Anyway, I guess I can also then see where it would naturally sit, so I can have the opportunity, hence why I still attach to, if I need to basically bring this up more before I attach the sleeves, because it is kind of being pulled down a bit because of where the ribbing part sits naturally, now that it's attached rather than just on its own. So maybe it's not too bad after all. Gives it more shape, which is obviously what I wanted, rather than the bottom just being basically a square or rectangle, whatever, but not having like increases and decreases. It's all the attachment part for the ribbing and the pieces here that's doing the shaping basically. I think I'm just gonna check in the mirror. Right, so I had a look in the mirror and I also just rotated around, so the more singed in part that was on the back before is now on the front, and I definitely think the other way was better. So basically this part that's more singed in will be the back, because I actually think it's okay. And I did think whether that could be a possibility, that it's okay that it's kind of been messed up like that, and then this just becomes either the front or the back depending what looks better. But I actually feel like this kind of doesn't sit quite right properly under the boobs, and I just kind of keep wanting to pull this down. Of course this is not done, it's going to keep going up, but yeah, and it just creates more of like that bit of that bubble thing that I didn't want. So rotate it back. I kind of feel like this sits better where the ribbing is, so that singe under the boobs and the part above it and below it kind of just sits a bit better, I think. And I also think on the back, sometimes often you get tops or dresses like that where the back is more singed in to create shape, so maybe it wasn't such a bad thing happening after all. A happy accident? I actually think it could be alright. I think it creates a pretty nice shape. This is exactly what I wanted. I actually think it's okay. And I think I've not wasted all this time, and I'm glad I kept going. Now I just gotta decide whether the height of the top part is alright, up to where I want the sleeves to attach and start, basically. Or whether I just want to add a row or two, because obviously now these things are attached together, so it gives an effect of how it's going to actually end up sitting, unlike I was just placing this top part before, but this is actually how it naturally wants to sit, and it's not going anywhere. I also don't want the sleeve to be like too tight or too right up in there in the armpit. But if I'm actually happy with this, which I think I am, that is the next part. Either just extend this a little bit, or so I can get to the point of adding the sleeves, or then actually add the sleeves, which obviously are going to be then, I'm going to make sure that that more singed in part is going to be on the back. So that is basically going to be the back of the top. So yeah, I guess we're always going to attach the sleeves now. Now that I know this, I can actually think that I'm not that far off, because the sleeves are already done. I just need to attach them and then finish this upper part. Just right, so I've attached everything together now. Let me show you. So I have no loose pieces in this bag anymore, other than a bit of spare yarn, I think, but it's all one piece of clothing now, if I can get it out. Now I still have yarn attached because I'm still working on the top part, but the main thing I wanted to update is I've attached the sleeves and I've started working further up now. Let's try and put it on. Obviously it's a little awkward because the sleeves are only barely attached, but no. So basically, like I said, I've attached them basically where the armpit is, and then I've started continuing the rounds. That's going to extend this top part, and it's also going to then extend the sleeves, something a bit like that. And of course I'm going to keep going, and then I'll try it on here and there as I'm making it. I know I definitely have to do a few rounds, and I'll try it on and basically just stop whenever I feel like I like where it is. So this is where we're at, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. I can start to see a top come together.
3,000 years later.
Right guys, so I'm back home in England in my house after being in Denmark for 2 weeks visiting family over Christmas, and I still haven't finished the top. I was obviously working on it while I was there, so I brought it and I was working on it, but I didn't finish it while I was there. But I do feel like I'm getting really close. Obviously bear in mind I was kind of getting to the point where I was feeling really close to being done, and then I ended up undoing a bunch, and then obviously I've redone it, which is what I've then been working on. And just back it up a bit, don't know where the yarn is. Oh, the mat, actually I think I used up the skein I was working on, so I need to attach a new one. So far this is the top, as you can see. This is the neckline, so it's basically a wearable top. It's just not finished. That's the back actually. There we go. Let me just try it on, because part of the things that I adjusted basically when I undid a bunch of work and then I've redone it, obviously with adjustments. So this is what it looks like on, and overall I am pretty happy. I do think it's an improvement. I'm still not 100% happy. What happened, the reason I undid as much as I did, basically I'd gotten to about here or so after attaching the sleeves. So I'd done a few rows after attaching the sleeves. But what I was experiencing and unhappy with is right here, mostly. There was a lot of excess fabric basically, and obviously you do need to have excess so you can move and stuff, but I just felt like it was too much. And I thought, well, try and kind of like dramatically decrease. But I did that a couple of rounds and like tried to decrease quite substantially, specifically in this area, and it just gave a weird shape. I felt it kind of started bunching up underneath, because obviously you have multiple stitches and less stitches is gonna like bunch up the ones below if you do it too much, and that's kind of what was happening, and I wasn't crazy about that. So again, I ended up like, I want to be happy with this, at least happy enough. So I was like, I'm gonna undo and basically detach the sleeves again. And I undid it all the way down here. I might have already talked about this, but I don't really remember. And then I started decreasing from further down instead of just making it straight up. So basically it would start going in further down. Now I am happier with it, absolutely, because I actually feel like it's completely fixed this issue. I don't actually at all think I have that now, kind of extra fabric and bunching up. I do feel like it's giving a little bit of a weird shape around the boobs on the side, so I'm not 100% happy with that, but I do feel like it's definitely better than it was, and I feel like I'm happy enough to have left it. I was like, I'm not going to undo it again. I'm also not entirely sure what I would do different. I kind of figured out a way that I like decreasing this stitch pattern, because obviously it's all over. You have like 7 double crochets between each of these decorative parts where you have the actual pattern, and I kind of figured out to decrease it so it would continue like that. So I got rid of like a section at a time, you could say, and obviously I did a bit on the back as well. And then also I started decreasing here on the outer part of the sleeves again, to make sure that it was going to kind of go in, because the circumference down here is a fair bit more than it is up here, so I didn't want it to be too loose up here either. And I actually feel like that's worked out quite nicely, because I wanted it to just come in over the shoulders so it would kind of stay up, the sleeves wouldn't hang down too much. And obviously I've yet to do the ribbing as well, but I'm not 100% sure yet if I'm done and I'm going to add the ribbing now, or maybe do one more row or so, because I'm also conscious of kind of with the ribbing, I'm also thinking obviously the bra straps, I don't want them kind of like, it would be ideal if they could just get covered, but I do have to bear in mind that I'm going to add the ribbing. I'm going to add a little bit more. I also don't want it to go too close up to the neck in the front, which I actually think it already is fairly close, so I might call it now and basically start doing the ribbing now, because it's going to add obviously a bit more height here at the front as well as everywhere else. So well, doing the ribbing then on the neckline anyway, I'm going to make sure to do it, so I'm going to try and get it so it doesn't like have anything excess either. I don't want it to kind of bunch up or curl up or anything, so I'm going to kind of try and decrease it along the shoulder part here just to make sure it lays nice and flat across. So that's the plan for that. And then obviously I want to do that scalloped edging that she did in the tutorial, which I think is very beautiful, and I absolutely love that one, so I want to use that definitely. But I just got to figure out what I'm doing with the sleeve edging and bottom edging. The whole time I'm convinced that I'm going to do something, but it's getting more and more like, I'm not sure, because I kind of don't want to do the ribbing for the sake of ribbing, but I also feel like I do want to add something decorative wise. I'm still a bit torn with that, but I actually quite like the length that they are. I kind of don't feel like I need to add an edging for the sake of making them longer, so I don't know. But anyway, this is then what it looks like otherwise. I'm quite happy with the fit, how I've ended up doing it, so I do think it's an improvement up here. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's a little bit funny in the shaping just around here, but it's better than it was. So yeah, we're on to basically kind of doing finishing touches. And I guess I'm happy enough I could also actually start finishing off the ends throughout this piece. Being confident I'm not going to undo it, which was a freaking bitch last time, because I'd already finished off all the ends. And let's just say I finished them off pretty well, because that was a nightmare. I feel like I'm like this close. So it's the next day, and last night I spent working on the ribbing for the neckline, and I really like how it's turning out. Now I haven't tried it on yet, so I'm going to do that with you just to kind of see if it's laying how I want it to before I continue all the way around. So first of all, let me just show you. I ended up, to begin with, I did a single crochet row all the way around. At first I didn't, and she does in the tutorial, but I kind of felt that for mine it would be a little bit better for the ribbing to go into if I did a single crochet row all the way around first. Plus, if I wanted to count the stitches, then it'd be easier that way, which I haven't, but that was the thought process. So also, I'm not following the directions in the tutorial completely. I'm kind of just using it as inspiration. So the scalloped edging or ribbing that she did, it's the first time I'd ever seen that before, and I really like the look of it. I'm not quite doing it the same technique as she is, but I'm kind of doing my own and just using it as inspiration, and I really like how it's turning out. So I'm hoping it's gonna look nice and sit nice. But this is it. So it's ribbing, but it's scalloped, and I really like the look of it. I think it's so decorative compared to this regular ribbing, which is nice as well, but I just think that adds something different and really nice. So obviously I started on the back where I've started the whole top, and I've gone around, and then what I've done is I've gone to the other side but then come across the shoulder, which is what I want to test out to see how it lays in relation to hopefully not sticking up or anything. I want it to like lay flat across the shoulder. So that's what I'm going to try now before I continue the rest of the way around and finish off that ribbing, and then have to decide what I'm doing with the end of the sleeves and the bottom part, but one thing at a time. So this is it on. Now of course I haven't done the ribbing on the front here yet, so that's still plain. So far it's just on the back, and I do really like the edge of that, gives a nice scalloped edging, and I think it's working out how I want it to across the shoulder. So the difference I did was basically when I went back into the top to go to do the next part of the ribbing, I just went through an extra stitch rather than just the two for the rest of it like you normally do. Basically, in a way, decreasing a bit, you could say, but I think that's working out exactly how I want it to. Oh, and also what I did as well was I actually changed the hook that I used. So for the whole top I've used 3.5 mil, but then for the ribbing I started out there, but I felt it was it got a little bit too big or wide compared to say the rows on, or the stitches on the top, and I kind of felt like it looked a little bit like that on hers as well. It looked great on hers, not any criticism at all, but from the look I was wanting, and I felt like it needed to be, if anything, just a tiny bit smaller rather than about the same or a bit bigger. So I actually ended up going down to a 2.5 mil hook for the ribbing as well, just to like make it that little bit extra tight. Again, so if anything, I'd rather want it to kind of hug around the neckline rather than, you know, stick up or be loose or something. So that's what I've done as well, and I think it's working out. Obviously it's a bit awkward that it's on the back here, but I'm liking that edge. I do think it would also be very decorative on the sleeves and the bottom part of the top. Anyway, we'll see. The only concern I have is for it to work out evenly all the way around and meet back up properly with where I started out, because I didn't count anything, but also, like I said, I kind of made up my own technique for it, so I'm just kind of winging it at the moment, and we'll see how it works out. I'm sure it'll be fine. So yeah, that's where I think I'm going to just continue with what I'm doing and finish off the ribbing all the way around the neckline. As you can see, that's what is wanting to kind of like bunch up a little bit, but I think doing the ribbing and then using that smaller hook is going to be hopefully enough to kind of just singe it down a little bit. I seriously am seeing an ending to this. And also, I'm really enjoying making the ribbing. I've discovered that that's actually quite enjoyable.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So I finished the neckline, I did the ribbing, the scalloped ribbing, and I really like how it's turned out. I really like that scalloped ribbing, and it worked out nicely all the way around in relation to obviously the joining part, so it didn't get like half of a scallop done and then I had to connect. So I think there was like one stitch spare or something like that, so I was like, that's good enough for me. Anyway, let's just try it on. Can't wait to get rid of all these ends. Right, so this is it. Let's just try and push the bra straps a bit to the side. What's this? So, here we go. I think it looks really nice actually. I think it's turned out well how it's laying flat. I think what I did across the shoulder here, where basically you could call it decreased, that's worked out really well. Overall I think it sits quite nicely there. I really like that scalloped ribbing. I'm definitely going to be using that for things in the future. I was a little bit worried when I did the final row on the top and then I still obviously had the ribbing to do, that it was going to end up being too close to the neck here and feel a bit it's uncomfortable because I'm kind of pretty sensitive to sensory stuff and all that, but I actually think it's just okay. On the back, I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I should just try and stand up and see what it looks like. Here we go, around the back. And obviously now, with my shorter hair as well, the neckline really stands out even more, which is quite nice. I'm pretty pleased with that. Now, my problem is, because I do have a problem, let me just sit back down and talk to you. The whole time I've been planning on, actually that's something, because now the top sits how it's going to sit, because obviously there's nothing that keeps falling down like the sleeves did. So I can kind of judge it better. The whole time I'm planning on adding like an edging or ribbing to the sleeves and the bottom part of the top. Now I didn't want to add a ribbing so it kind of cinches the wrist in. I've decided definitely against that. I wasn't sure for a long time, but I definitely don't want to do that because I like the flowiness of the sleeve kind of and the shape and stuff. And actually now that I'm looking at it, the length has kind of gotten a little bit less because the sleeves are not falling down. So I was a bit thinking maybe I made the sleeves kind of too long. Not too long for my liking, but for adding extra edging on. But now that the sleeves are not falling down, they actually maybe could use a bit more length. So maybe edging actually is in place, because I started thinking a bit, do I want an edging now? And also what kind would I want? Because I don't want like a ribbing that cinches it in, like I said. I definitely decided against that. So it would basically literally just be a decorative edging, obviously for the sake of length as well if I felt like I needed it. So it's not desperately necessary for the length, but I do like my sleeves to be a little bit on the longer side, just to kind of like very tactile, and since I've always liked to have something to kind of grab onto, and if I need to I can like tuck my hands under my sleeves. So I do feel like actually with the length that it's sitting at now, with them not falling down, because obviously top part is finished, I do think a bit more length would be right. I prefer my sleeves to kind of sit a little bit further down here on my hand. So maybe that actually answers my problem, because I started thinking, do I want an edging at all? And like what kind if I do? And I've been very much going back and forth with me. I can't make up my mind if I'm going to do edging on the sleeves and the bottom or not. So like one at all. But now I'm actually trying this on properly, thinking I will for the sake of the length. Plus, I don't know, maybe tie it nicely together, because I thought I could technically do ribbing and do the scallop ribbing to make it kind of cohesive and fit with obviously the top part here. Just make sure to not make it singed in, but basically make it so it stays the same size. Try and make sure of that. So that is an option, which I kind of like the thought of. I think it will make all nice cohesive, obviously up here and then for the rest of it, because I'm a bit, obviously there's loads of options with edgings and you can do different things like picots and lacy stuff and that, but I just kind of feel a bit like it doesn't suit the top in my mind anyway. And then also with the scalloped edging of it, I'm not so sure that it will kind of suit it. So now that I'm talking out loud, I'm kind of thinking, I'm gradually making my mind that I'm going to see about actually trying to do the same edging, I think. So that might actually, now that I'm thinking about it, be what I'm going to decide to do. Which is quite nice. I guess just talking out loud about it helps, because I've been in my head about it and it's like I can't make up my mind, but I also really want to get this finished. Like, look how freaking close I am. I've done the edging on the neckline. Technically I could finish things off and it would be done. Obviously I have this ends to then finish off, which I've been holding off a bit on, because just in case I did something again where it's like I'm gonna undo so much again. I don't want to go through what I did before where undoing stuff that I'd already finished off, because that was a bitch. Anyway, I think I'm past that point, so I think I can go in and actually finish off my ends now. And I've been kind of, this has been sitting around for a little bit just because I've been so unsure about what to do with the edging on the other things or not, but because of talking out loud with you guys I feel like I need to crack on, because I want to get this done. One, because I just want to get it done because I've been working on it for so long and I want to be able to wear it, and two, I really want to start something new, like a new wearable thing. I have like a whole list of projects in my head that I really want to do. So yeah, I need to get this finished off. And the thing is, I'm so close as well, but I've just not been able to decide on the edging, so it's been sitting around. But I need to get this finished now and get on with something else. That's where we're at. Obviously I'll come back I guess and show you when it's fully done, because there's not that much left. So yeah. Guys, I finished the top and here it is. So this is what it looks like on all the way around, and I have the edging on all the edges as well. I decided to just kind of add that scallop ribbing, which I really love, to the neckline, the sleeves and the bottom part, and I'm really happy with that. Obviously it's not ribbing where it's and singeing it in, it's literally just basically decorative edge, and I really like that. I'm definitely going to be using this scalloped ribbing for other things because it is very lovely. And I did end up making my own kind of way of doing it. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. I really like how the neckline is sitting as well. And I kind of did those little decreases across the shoulder, so it's not going to be gaping too much up there. And I really overall like the stitch pattern as well, from the original tutorial of course, and I'm definitely using that for future projects. I'm already using it actually for a bag that I'm working on, so you'll probably see that again. And I'm also really glad that I added that ribbed waist to it as opposed to just having it straight up and down. And most of all, I'm just really glad that I'm done, because this has taken a very long time and I'm ready for something new. Obviously I always work on multiple projects at a time, but I think I've made the decision of kind of just one wearable at a time kind of thing, and then one, like say amigurumi thing at a time, one kind of like one at a time per kind of crochet project that it is. So I'm working on multiple things, but they're all kind of different from each other, if that makes any sense at all. So I think that's kind of the stage that I've gotten to. I think that makes sense to me, because I can't just work on one thing and nothing else. I have to have variety, because some days I'll feel like, say for instance working on something like this, I'll then feel I'm working on something like else a different day, like amigurumi or bag or something else. So I like having multiple projects on the go at the same time, but I like them to be different from each other, so not like two wearables at the same time kind of thing, mostly anyway. So yeah, I guess that's just it. I'm really happy with the sleeves. I love the length. It's basically just how I like it. I like when they just go a bit past, I guess, kind of halfway down the hand almost, because I've always liked the feeling of having something to grip, I guess the fidgety part or the stimming part, but I really like how it's all turned out. I'm happy that I did the edging that I did all around. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it being on all the edges, if it was going to be too much, but I do actually really like it, so, and I can see myself wearing this top, so I'm very happy with it. I hope you like it too, and of course the original tutorial that I followed for this will be in the description box down below. I highly recommend that and her whole channel because she does beautiful stuff and great tutorials, so yes, I'm quite happy with it. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video, following along my, I guess the main part of my journey of making this top once I eventually started filming. Now I will also just mention that I did do a little video or two on the amount of yarn that I used and the cost for making this top, but I did those in short form, so they will be on my channel. You can always have a look at that if you want to have a little nosy into that part of it. It's not serious or anything, it's a little fun thing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.